order for tonight's meeting of March 16th, 2021 of the Oswego City School District Board of Education. Kathleen Allen, Tom Chapa.
Here.
Heather Del Conte.
Here.
Pamela Dowd.
Here.
Lisa Glidden. I see you, Lisa.
I see her. I don't think she hears you.
Can you hear me, Lisa? I see her, so I'm going to go ahead. James McKenzie.
Here.
She maybe put in the chat that she's here. I am here.
Thank you. Linda Serino.
Here.
Next is public session of board meeting. It is expected that speakers will conduct themselves in a civil manner and will be ruled out of order for any statement that constitutes a employees or school district obscene. No personal attacks will be tolerated, nor should any speaker address specific district personnel or students by name or suggestions. Questions or comments concerning matters that are not on the agenda will be taken under consideration and referred to the superintendent for appropriate action. Members of the community may comment on any matter related to business. The board president may request a brief description of the topic the speaker plans to address. Any group or organization wishing to address the board must identify a single spokesperson. Presentations should be as brief as possible and no speaker will be permitted to speak for longer than 3 minutes. Robert Bruns, 1 Ryan's Way, the front page of the March 4th, 2021 edition of the Palladium Times, contains an article about Oswego High School return to instruction. The 5% school day can be considered rigorous. The article also describes the school schedule continuing to run only 4 days per week, with Wednesday being a fully virtual learning day. My experience so far this school year is that my high school sophomores have needed only 2 hours on average to complete Wednesday's virtual learning. Carrie Calabro, 24 Tallman Street. Although the Oswego County Department of Health approved 2 spectators per athlete for our home teams, the Oswego City School District Administration and Board of Education decided to not allow spectators at this time. Why? What's the holdup? Why is Oswego City School District the last with implementing anything? You should be more proactive and have already considered what you were going to do when this was allowed. Bethany Moore, 241 West 8th Street. Is there any plan to get the remaining grades back into school at least 4 times a week? Vaccines have been administered at this point and schools are not super spreaders. We are seeing this happen in districts surrounding us. Although I recognize we are all different in size, plans, etc., why is there no talk of this happening? It seems as though grade 2 through 6 are forgotten now that other grades have rolled out more in-person learning. Sarah Nelson, 11 4th Street. Is it possible to set up some sort of interactive open forum with the superintendent and based on questions from the community that have not been answered via this method? Invite board members, the health department, doctors or nurses, construction management teams, anyone involved with the school district at this time for an open discussion to get some of the community's questions answered. Nilesh Shah, 2992 State Route 48. In the board minutes from March 2nd, 2021, Section 9, Curriculum, combining athletic contract with Fulton. The minutes state that students may join sports of another district if it is a public school to a public school. They cannot if a private school to a public school, per New York State law. Can the board please provide the specific section within New York State education law from where the statement is pulled? I am asking because New York State, I'm not sure which that is, NYSPHSAA handbook, page 32, does not prohibit these types of mergers, and the rules that are in place are meant to ensure that schools do not merge in order to gain the competitive advantage. These rules apply equally to both public and public to non-public team combinations. If the specific section cannot be found, I would suggest that these minutes be amended to remove the statement. Next is the superintendent's report.
Sorry about that.
Karen, can you have the minutes note that Kathleen did attend as a 503?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Good evening, board. I hope everybody's doing really well tonight. Glad to see everybody back on. I did hear some of the comments here that were made at the beginning of the meeting. I do have some responses to some of the comments that we shared that were shared with us tonight. I'm going to just kind of dive into the things that we have for you this evening. All right, Matt, please go ahead. First of all, I want to let folks know that the district is continuing to move forward. We have been working very hard with our students who are here in person and those who are on remote. I will share with you some of our plans kind of moving forward in just a couple of minutes to share some of the work that we are invested in and working through at this point in time. Tonight, in terms of my report, I would like to talk with the board a little bit about school reopening information, capital project updates. We'll share a little bit about the preliminary 2021 to 2022 budget. We'll talk a little bit about STAR data. In our last meeting, we had a request about going back and looking at STAR data again. And then we'll spend some additional time on updates on several items that people may have questions on, which include athletics and extracurricular activities. Okay, Matt? So first, we did reopen last week very successfully at the high school. So now all the buildings are back open again. It's great to see our students and our families back in place here in the district. We had a number of parents who came in with their students for the reopening orientation. Great to meet some of the parents. Great to see our kiddos back here in place. Grades K and 1 also went back in for 4 days a week, and that has gone very well. We are now planning for grades 2 and 3. We would like to see these grades back as soon as possible, as we'd like to see all of our kids back. So this evening, we're really excited to share that we are ready for grades 2 and 3. We have a couple of things that we still need to work out, but we believe that we're ready for 2 and 3 to come back 4 days a week. That returning to school for grades 2 and 3 will begin on April the 5th. So that's the Monday right after the break. And we just kind of want people to know that we'll be doing that. Our principals will be soon sending out letters to our parents and to our community of grades 2 and 3 students. And what we want to know from our parents is if you want your kid to come in, we want to know if you would like to do so. And also we are looking for information around transportation so that we can make sure that we are planning accordingly. We will be able to those students according to regulation and be able to get them back in on the 5th. We do have more to come in the future. At our next Board of Ed meeting, we are going to share with folks some additional information. We are planning now for additional grades from grades 4 up to come back even more days. So we will be prepared to share that at our next meeting, but we'll start on April 5th with grade 2 and grade 3. With respect to planning, we have gotten some questions or some concerns tonight around asynchronous learning. Please know that we are now reviewing that asynchronous plan. We're looking for ways that we can actually make that better for students on the Wednesdays. And also, I wanted to share a little bit about planning. So I had over the last week or so, a couple parents reach out to me and ask me, how come we can't do what other districts may do? Why are we different from District A or different B is different from C and D? What is it that goes into this planning process as you bring students back? So there are a couple things that people kind of really need to understand. First of all, we have been following the regulations around social distancing from the CDC. We have heard that some of those regulations may change. In the last week, we've heard several things on the news. The CDC hasn't put things yet into place, but we've heard that they're thinking about changing the social distancing rules. So we look at the social distancing rules, and we try to make sure in all of our classroom settings that we have those rules and regulations in place. Also, there's some spacing requirements, so only so many people can be in rooms based upon social distancing regulations. The program interest is another thing that we look at. Some districts have really said, you know what, So business as usual, we don't want in place. We don't want music, art, PE, any of those extra services that kids are receiving. We're not one of those districts who is there. We feel that we need to have in place AIS, reading support services. We feel we need to have in music, art, PE, all of those things. And in terms of where those programs kind of go and how they work throughout the day, those are certainly considerations. Transport is a big important piece as well. How many kids we can get on transfer back and forth to schools, really critical. We have currently 66 passenger buses, but because of the social distancing requirements, we can only have anywhere between 22 to 26 at the most, depending on if families are coming on the buses. So we have to sometimes stagger the busing and make sure that there are different shifts of busing that's happening or occurring as we are planning. And then health and safety considerations certainly are things that we look at as well in terms of how many cases, exposures, what are we seeing happening in our area, in our district. All of those things are some of the items that go into planning for our children to come back. And certainly the district is working through all of those items as we look to bring more kids back in the near future. So I just wanted to share that because, again, we had some people who reached out and said, what actually goes into that planning? It really is not a process where we just say, hey, tomorrow everybody comes back. There are a number of items that we do have to work through and make sure that we have things in place for kiddos when they return and for our staff as well. I want to share a little bit about now class and extracurricular offerings. So we are definitely making sure that as we move forward that we have that balance, right? That not only are we offering athletics, but that we're offering music, that we're offering our strings program, that we're offering chorus, arts, fine arts, and also we know that we have some people who are interested in doing drama. So our district is, as we're moving forward, making sure that all of those opportunities are available for students. In all of our schools, we have kids who are already doing chorus, symphony, band. Some of it's done remote, some of it's done in person. Actually, today I was at the high school and I saw a choir kind of enter in and start doing some chorus in the auditorium. So I can assure our public that we are definitely working diligently to make sure that there is a balance, that all children who are looking forward to extracurricular and athletic opportunities, that they have those offerings available, especially as we continue out throughout the rest of this year. Okay, Jamie, Matt, go ahead. We had some questions tonight. One was about the high school schedule. Just so we're clear, we began the year with a 5-hour and 20-minute schedule, 9 periods per day. Even though we've moved the time frame up a little bit, we still have a 5-hour, 20-minute day, 9 period a day. We now have also, in addition to that, an extra block of extra assistance that we've designated at the high school level and also at the middle school level for our children. At the high school, kids can get extra assistance from 12:50 until 2:30, I believe it is. Heidi, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that's a time frame. There's a sports study hall that's offered. There's small group. There's one-on-one supports. Any child who needs help or support from their instructors, especially as we're moving through this remote learning, this is a time for them to be able to get that. And there are a lot of young people who are taking advantage of that time. So we do have still the 5-hour and 20-minute day, 9 periods per day in place, but we've also added that extra block. The district is now also reviewing the day. We may come back with revisions in the near future, but I just wanted to share that that's what's actually occurring. With respect to athletics, that came up this evening in some of the notes. That 2-spectator matter has been resolved. We've already shared with our public that people can come back now, 2 spectators per event. In terms of in-person instruction, just want to share that the district is now, as you heard me say a minute ago, working on more students 4 days a week. We have not forgotten about grades 2 through 6. That is not correct. As I shared, we already have 2 and 3 coming back. At our next meeting, we'll share the next group coming back. And we are certainly working diligently on that as we speak. With respect to attendance in our schools, we had a community member who reached out as well and shared some comparative data. I'm not really sure where all of that data came from, but I just wanted to be very clear that we currently have between 65 and 68% of our parents who were surveyed who've shared with us that they wanted in-person services. And that's what we have been providing, and that's what we are providing at this time. From school to school, there may be a different amount, but it is within the 65 to 68% range of students that wanted to come back. Anyone who was interested, we've been working diligently to get them back into school. And then the last thing I heard tonight about was combined athletics, public versus non-public school rules and regulations. There are some different rules for public schools and non-public schools. We shared that at the last meeting. There is, for that particular community member, there is some legal information that is out there. There are laws that we do have. I will send that information out to that particular public member so that that public member has the information in front of them. Okay. And board, I just have a quick question before we move on tonight. Just an idea, and wonder what your thoughts are. One of the things that I was thinking that might be helpful, we've heard from a couple people that, they want to make sure everybody's questions are answered. And so one of the ideas that I had was we could actually put onto our webpage a place for community questions and answers. And it can be like a rolling document. So each meeting, you can put the date, what was the question, what was the answer, and people can just kind of see those questions and answers there and just go to the page and see that. And if the board would have no difficulty with that, we could have that in place by our next board meeting. We would certainly publicize that as well from the community. So I just wondered what your thoughts were. Heather?
Yeah, I just want to be clear that obviously I think this is a good idea, but we have been answering everyone's questions either in the superintendent's report or personal emails. And the way we've kind of pulled it apart is if it's an administrative issue, Dr. Calvin has responded in his report. And if it's really something we voted on and it's a board issue, then the board has responded. Most of these questions really are administrative in nature. So I do really appreciate this concept. I think, we won't put in everybody's statements in full, but just, right, Dr. Calvin, we'll just put in the question and answer. But just to be clear, this is kind of like an additional step because we have really been on top of answering folks' questions as they've come.
Yes. I see a hand from Linda. Linda, did you have a question there? I'm not sure if she's frozen, maybe. Linda, could you send us the question maybe in the chat or?
No, I forgot to turn my computer on.
Okay.
I think your idea is great because what I'm seeing is that the same questions may be being asked several different times from different people, which they may not have heard the answer on the last meeting or they missed it. Right. This way they can go back through and see if their concerns have already been addressed by us.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Great. So if the board is okay, would the board be all right with us doing that? I see Jim. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I also think it's a good idea because as we've heard sometimes people are saying we haven't responded when we may have done in another manner that wasn't as clear. I just would like to say that especially in these times, you're posting something in writing that there is that caveat. There is this disclaimer that if new information comes up, we may have to change how we're acting because, again, these are different times and they're constantly evolving.
I'm in total agreement. Great point, Jim. I appreciate that. Everybody else okay? Any other comments? Okay, I see thumbs up from everybody. Okay. All right, great. So we'll get that in place prior to our next board meeting and we'll make sure we share that with the full public. Okay? All right. So we're going to shift gears now, and I just wanted to share a little bit about our capital improvement project. My apologies for the lettering, but I'll read it out loud. So just show you where we're at right now. At the middle school, things are substantially complete. Boiler number 1 controls have been turned on and off, and then the boilers have also been reset. A new panel has been ordered. as it may be an issue, and we're researching why the boiler kind of kicked off. We had some issues with the boiler, but currently things are running like they're supposed to be running, and then the punch list work is ongoing there at the middle school. At Layton Elementary, the work again is substantially complete. Base patches are ongoing, need to be grouted. CJ and tile walls, the control joint and the tiles walls are being cut. That's occurring during the night shift. The 8A's office is substantially complete. I was over there today. The last piece that needs to occur in that office space is some windows that we need to put in. There are 2 windows. They should be here by the 15th. They've been confirmed. The shipping was confirmed on the 15th that they were sent out. The direct shipment is coming here to the job site and will be installed as soon as we receive it. And then finally, the epoxy flooring in the storage room is scheduled to occur over the April break. At the high school, work also substantially completed. The punch list work has been ongoing during the second shift, and the door and hardware items completion is ongoing. We have 2 doors that are still missing that we're still getting into place, but we're pretty much set at the high school. With respect to the site and stadium work, with the concessions area, we have sensor breakers installed at the fans. The hood inspection complete and commissioned. The install certificate is to be issued. Bathroom partitioners have also been put into place. The accessories, we have 95% of the accessories in place. 100% of the fixtures are now in place. The mezzanine floor sealer is in place, and then the punch list items are now being scheduled. With the team locker room, the bathroom partitions, we have 70% of those in place now. Painting, 95% of that has been done. Accessories, 90% are in place. Fixtures, 90%. With respect to the mezzanine floor sealer, also that's about 90%. And then punch list items are being scheduled at this time. The press box is substantially complete, and we've been working through the temperature controls with those temperature pieces that are there at this time. Go ahead, Matt. Here's some pictures for the board to be able to see. The first picture here to your right, you'll see the athletic director's office. They've started to move in already and getting things in space or in place there. The first picture is the outer office area, and then the second one is the athletic director's office that's now been put into place. The third picture that you see is actually the kitchen area in the new stadium concession stand place. All of the appliances have been put into place. The flooring, all of that's done. All we have is a couple punch list items that we need to go through and make sure that everything is all set. Go ahead, Matt. Another picture on the right from the kitchens out, the concession stand kitchen area. And then you'll see some of the partitioners in the bathrooms that have been put into place, and then the locker rooms, which have pretty much been all, that pretty much are all set and done. Yesterday, we took a tour with several of the board members. We went around through Layton, and we also went through the concession areas. We went out to the turf. We saw the entire setup out there, and I believe everybody was good. Am I correct? Okay, great. We'll continue to offer tours throughout the year. Okay. The next, go ahead, Matt, next slide. Just in terms of the budget summary, so we are our estimated percent complete is 96%. The percent of the budget to date, work in place, is at just over $722,540. So it's 91.28% work in place. The amount that has been paid to date is $20,636,413. That's 87% has been paid to date. The percent of allowance that has been used, 40.83%, projected no more higher than 46.13%. And the percent of the contingency that's been used is 9.33%, and projected is at no more than 25%. Okay? Any questions? Matt, you can go to the next slide. Everybody good? All right. With that said, we're going to now take a shift here and talk a little bit about the preliminary school budget for the 2020-2021. Actually, you should say 2021, 2022 school year. Our apologies. All right. Go ahead, Matt. So as we have created the budget, again, what we've been working on is 4 goals. The first one is that we have a budget that's fiscally sound, not excessive for taxpayers. The second goal is that we have a budget that is flexible and provides for flexibility within budget codes. Third, that our budget is foolproof, that it provides for emergencies should they occur, and that our budget flows, that it has enough cash flow available should state aid ever be withheld with respect to the budget. So go ahead, Matt. So just to share with everyone, as most of you know, on March 11th, the president signed the 1.9 trillion COVID relief bill. And what this, bill means to school districts across the state is still pretty vague, right? We're not sure of all the details that this means, but what we know is that there are some funds that will be hopefully coming into districts pretty soon. So as you can see, the bill has a lot of items to it. And now we're just waiting on the full rollout so that we will better understand what that means at the state level and how that actually demonstrates at the local level. Go ahead, Matt. Some questions that we have, with respect to the stimulus is additional stimulus money in addition to the original projections from the state in terms of their state aid projections. Originally the governor's state budget planned for a $6 billion stimulus, so we're not sure how this is going to work. Is this also less gears and ESSER grant funds? Is this a multi-year payout program? Are there restrictions on the use of additional monies that we may get from the federal government? We're not sure what those restrictions will be. Will we have to account for funds in a federal account? I'm not sure how we're going to actually separate the funds, or will we even need to do so? And is the state going to replace additional aid that is withheld from the original projections? And will the state take a new look at increasing foundation aid? There were some concerns about foundation aid here as we began this budget cycle and year. And then there's an elephant in the room. Matt, can you go on to the next page, please? And what's that elephant in the room, right? What happens when the federal funds go away, right? So we don't know how long those funds are going to last for, and we want to be careful with what we use and how we use those funds, because sometimes you can supplant certain things that you can't sustain over a long period of time. So it's a big question and concern that many are really concerned about with respect to the COVID-19 relief bill. Okay? So we do have some projections based upon, we've looked at revenue and also expenditures. And I'm going to let Nancy go ahead over to review the revenue and also the preliminary expenditures and the 3-part component budget. Okay, go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you, Dr. Calvin. So property taxes for the 21-22 year are estimated at $26,987,973. Which is a budget change from the current year, an increase of $359,485, or 1.35% increase, and that is in our levy. Our pilot revenue, which we know the largest is our nuclear pilot, is projected to increase $289,090, which is a 1.16% increase from 2021-22 to 2021. State aid, which is still unknown, but this is the information that we had from our original run, is estimated at $36,917,917,816, and which is a $3.4 million increase, or 10%. As we said, that we are not sure whether the state is going to give us any more money from the aid that they took. In one of our earlier projections, we had said that the state was withholding STAR payments back to the district and substituting federal funds for that. In our revenue budget, we have used all of the federal funds in this one budget, which is about $4 million. Other districts have decided to use that over a 2-year period, but we have used that to fund this whole budget. Other revenue is decreasing slightly, $618,000, 24%. In other revenue, that is refunds from prior year expenditures It could be Medicare or Medicaid reimbursements, things like that. Fund balance, we're not showing any use of fund balance or reserves to support the projected budget. Last year, we did use $837,811 of fund balance to support the budget, which is a decrease of 100%. As you can see, our budget for 2021 is $91.1 million as opposed to our current budget, which is $88.5 million. And our revenue is $2.6 million more, or almost a 3% increase from the current year. Next slide, Matt. So preliminary expenditures overall for the entire budget, salaries are projected to go up $1.7 million or 4.48%. Equipment is projected to go down $36.8 million or a 7.94% decrease. Contractual, which is all of our contracts with outside entities, is projected to go down $57,161 or a decrease of about 1%. BOCES, which is all of our BOCES programming, is projected to go up $273,596, a 2.73% increase. Our supplies, which are used in the classroom or in office spaces, are projected to go down $16,467 or a 1.2% decrease. And our benefits, which include workers' comp, disability, health insurance, dental insurance, are projected to go up $1 million, almost $1.2 million for a 4.84% increase. And our debt service is projected to increase slightly, $135,654 or a 1.9% increase. So as you can see from our revenue, which was going up 2.99%, our expenditures, projected expenditures are higher, which is at 3.68%. Next slide, Matt.
Right, before you go to the next slide, I'm sorry, Matt, can you go back? So board, just so that we're clear, you know, the biggest drivers in this budget that we have for you tonight, salaries, benefits, right? Our BOCES costs, which are services for our kids, and debt service, right? So it's not like a lot of fluff in the budget. It truly is around human capital, right? Making sure that we pay for salaries and benefits, okay?
And thank you, Dr. Common. And 80% of every school budget is salary and benefits.
Okay, all right, go ahead, Matt.
So our three-part component budget, which consists of administrative, capital, and program. Administrative budget for 21-22 is $8.4 million, and for the current year is $8.2 million for a change of $190,313 or a 2.25% increase. Our capital budget, which is our debt service, and all of our facilities is at $12,154,326 as opposed to $12,010,948, an increase of $143,378 or a 1% increase. Program, which is everything we do every day. This is our teaching and learning. Everything that we do for our students is projected at $71 million. Current year budget $68 million, or an increase of $2.9 million or 4%. So that's where our current 3.68% increase in expenditures is coming from.
Nancy, can you just go over really quick for the board the things that are included in administrative? Want to make sure that people don't think it's just administrative salaries. Does that make sense?
No. So administrative is all of the components. It could include the superintendent's department, finance, personnel, some curriculum salaries for administrators and their department budgets. It includes legal fees. It includes tax certiorari's. There's a whole slew of administrative functions in a district, and that is what is included in that line.
Thank you. Okay, Matt.
Dr. Calvin, would you like me to continue?
Go right ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So we did do a current tax cap calculation. That calculation will allow for up to a 4.99% in the tax levy. But for this budget presentation, we did not go up to the cap. It was decided that we would increase the levy 1.35%.
We really looked at the needs of our community and the fact that we're also in the middle of a pandemic, and what could we do to really make the budget, to the most, most affordable as we kind of go back to those original goals. So we could raise the budget. It's possible that the board and the district could raise the budget up by 4.99%. But we really felt that it would be best not to, especially to go to that length with everything that's happening in our country and in our community. So that's where we came up with the 1.35%, just so that everyone understands. Linda, I think, has a question there. Linda, did you have a question?
Is that a recommendation to the board, 1.35?
Yes.
It's not set, right?
It is not set in stone, but certainly that is our recommendation as we kind of move through.
Right. I wanted to make sure it was a recommendation. And the other question is that based on what I'm hearing, I've been waiting for the wish list to come up that we go through every year. It appears there won't be an opportunity for us to review a wish list from the buildings.
So as we've kind of gone along, if you remember in our discussions throughout the three-part budget areas, we've brought up the things that we have really heard about, like, for example, transportation needed extra vehicles, needed like extra cars or whatever else have you. We've included those in those discussions, basically. Nancy, are you aware of any other items for wish list that I'm not? Go ahead.
So there are some wish lists from the schools and from departments. But if we go to the next slide, I think that is going to take some of that off of the table. So Matt, can you go to the next slide? So right now, one back, Matt. Thank you. So right now, where we stand. We have preliminary revenue at $91,152,531. Preliminary expenditures, which are over our revenue, at $91,762,199. Currently, we have a gap of $609,668. This is less than gaps that have been brought to you in the past, but it is still a gap. There are some things that if we did get additional revenue, we could bring back, but first we have to deal with the gap that we currently have.
Have you taken into account retirements yet?
Yes, we have. Mm-hmm. And just to kind of go back, so we have included a number of the items that we've gone through in our presentations, and we can come back. So this is a preliminary budget. We can and we will come back and share with the board additional wish items as we kind of move through, for sure.
That's typically what we're used to. At some point before the end is at least just to see what the wants and needs of each of the building are. So going forward, we have an idea.
Sure, we will bring that back at the next meeting and share those items with you for sure. Okay, that's great. We can do that. I think. So
in addition to that, the state budget, which must be completed by March the 31st. All of the information that we're getting preliminarily is saying that we should get some information on April the 1st.
Right.
Which could lead to more. Well, we're hoping that would lead to more state aid.
Absolutely. Tom, did you have a question there?
I did, relative to the salaries portion of the 4.48% increase. Does that include positions, or is just salary increases for the same number of positions?
Did you hear that question, Nancy?
Does it include positions?
Additional positions, or is that just a 4.48% increase across all the salaries?
No, as we've talked, it includes positions. So as we've talked to departments such as special ed, because of students that are moving in and services that they may need, we have added some nurse, I think, and some TA positions as well.
Okay, because I didn't want people to get the idea that during this period, there's a 4.48% increase in salaries across the board. I just wanted to understand that.
No,
Okay.
no. Yep, great question. Great question. Jim, and then I see Heather has a question.
Oh, Heather, you go first.
Heather?
My question was just, Nancy, could you remind us what the overall increase was from last year to this year, so we can compare it to the number we're looking at now? Percentage increase.
I don't have that off the top of my head, Heather. I'd have to go back and look. It's just not.
Do you remember what the bottom line was for our budget?
The current year budget's 88,505, 455.
No, the year before. I see that one here, but
no,
it feels like a big jump. That's why I'm trying to remember if we made that big of a leap the year before.
no, we didn't. I can tell you that we did not make that big of a leap. If you remember, we came to the board with a lot of budget reductions. And we had cut, before we even brought it to the board, almost $4 million from our original planned budget for the 21-22 year. And then we had brought back to the board in PowerPoint presentations further reductions to where we got it down to actually supporting the budget with $837 of fund balance to get it balanced. So I can tell you that from 1920 to 2021, it was not a large increase because our revenue would not sustain that budget.
I think I saw Lisa with a question too. And we can, Heather, we can get that percentage for you. What was the increase?
Yeah.
We can bring that.
Actually, you did actually send it to us in the transmittal last week.
Yes.
So the 2019-2020 budget was 86,034. I'd have to figure out the percentage change, but this year's 88,505. The previous year was 86,034.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you. And board, I think we'd like to make sure that we stress that this is truly a preliminary budget. So we see a gap here at this point in time. However, we're very confident that in the very near future that we will get more information not only from state aid, but also now that the stimulus information is coming out, we feel very confident that we'll be able to close that gap with stimulus funds for sure. That's our thought at this time. We'll know more hopefully by this April 1st deadline when the state is supposed to have its budget out. So this is truly a preliminary budget. Linda, did you have an additional question there? I think I saw her hand up. Okay. All right.
Dr. Calvin, that would have been a 2.9% increase.
2.9% last year. All right.
Yeah.
And so this year we're looking at a 1.35 percentage this year. Does that help, Heather?
No, that's not. The 1.35 is the tax levy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, that helps.
Okay. Jim, did you have another question there? Thank you. I apologize there, by the way. Misunderstood.
Yeah, so, and I'm still getting used to reading some of these numbers. Right now, and I agree with this, we're calculating in $0 as a fund balance, all right? Which, again, we don't know what's going to happen in the next few months, so I think that's wise. But there may be a fund balance. And in our last report, there may be a close to $1 million fund balance. Is that true?
It really.
Are you talking about? I'm sorry, Dr. Calvin.
No, go ahead, Nancy.
Were you talking about from the fund balance projection?
Yes.
Yes.
So so we all understand, including the public out there, when we look at this number of gap that says minus 600, almost $610,000, that it's possible we may have some fund balance from this year that may offset that. So we're actually going to be able to reduce the overall tax burden by yes, a small percentage, but we're not actually looking at a possible deficit. It's just that you're being really conservative now, not knowing how much you're going to have to spend in the remaining months. Is that correct?
Yes.
That is correct.
Yes, and again, that's why we're saying it's preliminary, and you are exactly right, Jim. Absolutely.
Great, thank you. The second thing was about we made a very big expenditure this year to get every student their own electronic laptop, a Chromebook or whatever, and that this is something that Dr. Calvin, you have said this is something that we should be encouraging, even past the pandemic. That this is something that districts have been doing. Technology is important to our society. But as part of that, if I remember correctly, we spent, or at least we transferred to BOCES $820,000 or $830,000, of which a good amount of that would be reimbursable. Right? So have we taken into account in our next year's budget that reimbursement from BOCES?
That one and other reimbursements as well. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Okay, that's all in the revenue.
Right.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yes. Great. Okay, Matt, go ahead. All right, bus proposition. Go ahead, Nancy. You want to go ahead and do that part?
So the community has been very supportive of our buses. And last year, because there was an issue with our funds, we only bought 2 buses. But this year, Tom Gunn, which is our transportation supervisor, would like to keep our reciprocal bus pattern going. So he would like to purchase 2 30-passenger Bluebird microbus gas buses, 2 65-passenger gas buses, 3 64-passenger diesel buses, and 3 64-passenger Detroit buses. You may want to know why we're buying gas and diesel. We started a transition to gas buses last year, but because of the pandemic, we were not able to get a full year's worth of estimates on how they are running. So Tom has used them at his previous district. The gas buses take less time to heat up, but we would like to buy at least 10 buses for an estimated cost not to exceed $1,125,000. As you know, we auction our buses off on Auctions International, and we always get high dollar rebates back on our buses. So this is a proposition that we would like to put forth to the voters on our proposition for the election.
Just want to make sure, Linda, I see Linda and Tom. Just want to make sure. I'm not sure if Linda's hand's just up because she's stuck. She's frozen on my screen. I just wanted to make sure we're passing her. Okay, I think she took it down there. Brought it back up. Tom, did you have a question? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, are these still reimbursable in the following year, Nancy?
Yes, they are.
63%? Is that what it is as well? Or I forget which the percentage was.
Oh, for our buses?
Yeah.
No, our transportation aid is in the in the low 80s.
Okay, so even though we're bonding this, we'll receive that money next year to the reimbursement of this from state aid.
Mm-hmm. It comes back in our transportation aid.
Right. Okay, I just want to make sure I was clear on that.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you.
Great. Pam? I think Pam Dow had a question.
Is that transportation aid guaranteed
Oh,
to come back to us?
Well, you know, there are no guarantees in anything that we do. But we are very hopeful. We have always gotten our transportation aid back. Mm-hmm. This year, the governor is combining or wants to combine all of these transportation and some of our BOCES aids and some of our other aids. We hope that the lobby groups are persuading him that this is not a good idea because they each have funding levels of their own. But we're pretty confident that we will get the aid back on our buses.
You know, there hasn't really been a huge time where transportation aid hasn't come back, I would say, Pam, in the past. We heard this year that the governor was trying to hold a couple of, aid categories, but they did pretty much restore most of that there. So, go ahead.
Were those the categories that he was like, oh, well, you didn't carry students, you carried food? Because I remember back when we weren't, is that what you're talking about and that's been restored or no?
Go ahead, Nancy.
No, what we're talking about is in one of the early presentations, he was combining aids and offsetting that with other revenue. He was combining BOCES aid and our transportation aid and a library and our textbook aid into one lump sum. But we would still be responsible for breaking it all out. But that was a way to minimize what we were getting into, to reduce that bucket, which he did reduce almost $500,000, which was not offset by federal funds. So we're hoping we get that back if the state does get more money. And we're hoping that he changes his mind on combining all of those aids.
Right. So we have hopes that he's changing his mind, but we're still, at this point, are we short getting some transportation aid back from this current school year because, or maybe it was last year, whenever that they were talking about, we used our buses for transporting food and all that, and there was
last year we are not losing any aid.
Okay.
So there was that 20%. I think you're talking about the 20% withholding, Pam, that was of concern. But since that has occurred, there was a lot of discussion, frustrations. There are also some lawsuits filed, and that's been released at this time. So we're just now waiting for all the final monies back, basically. Okay?
I just have concerns. It's a lot of buses in 1 year.
So when you consider the size of our fleet and the age of the fleet, it does seem like a lot of buses. However, so I usually try to do a 5-year recyclable kind of bus system. You all are a little bit farther out than most districts are. Why? Because after 5 years, your buses, it's the wear and tear on the vehicle, right? Your warranties start to run out, and it starts costing the district a whole lot more money and the taxpayers more money when you have to actually replace the parts or do all the work. And there's some work that we can do, and some, depending on how big the work is, that will start to cost you more. It's just like with your own vehicle. Just imagine it with a bus, how much it costs. So, honestly, given the fact that you are actually off the cycle with bus replacements, and you do have a number that really it's time to start to change them. Actually, I would say that this number is actually not as big as it could be, and it's actually conservative. And my personal feeling is I would recommend those 10 at least to be looked at, just to ensure also the health and safety of kids and staff as well, to make sure that we're good. So just my opinion, my recommendation. I hope that helps, Pam. He's like, well, maybe, but I appreciate your concern for sure, and certainly we'll take that into account. Right?
How many did we do last year? Because I feel like we've always been told that we're keeping up on our fleet and we're ahead of the game. I mean, that's what we've been told for multiple years, that we have one of the newer fleets in the county, and because we do replace them so frequently and every year. So I'm really confused on this conversation right now.
Last year, I think you only did 2 buses, if I remember correctly. Am I correct, Nancy?
That's correct.
There was concerns around the budget, so it was pulled out. So that's why the cycle got off a little bit there with the buses.
Okay, but only for 1 year it got off. Before that, we were replacing 7, 8, 10 buses every year, correct?
Kathleen, we're still on a 7-year plan.
Right. So again, I go back to where I started at. Kathleen, your plan is a little bit farther out than most places. Honestly, I'm used to a 5-year replacement plan, not a 7, 8. The more you start getting past 5 years, that's again when your warranties and things start to run out, and that's when you really start to see larger costs. Which is why I would say what you missed a year here, and I would think my feeling is that what's being recommended would be appropriate. I hope that answered your question, Kathleen. as to how
It
we
did.
got out.
Just looking at this number and just looking at how we increase every year, I just don't know how this continual increase is sustainable for this community.
Well, I would say that I hear you loud and clear. Most districts do have a recyclable amount, and it usually is within that 5 year or just a little bit over that piece. That's generally the way it's done, and it gets recycled because again, you get aid off of it, so you get 87%. You can get your new bus and kind of move in that direction. I think maybe what might help also is maybe what we could do is at our next meeting, we can bring you the bus recyclable chart to show you how many buses are in the fleet, where each of the buses are in the fleet in terms of the recyclable amount. Would that help to answer some of this question?
That would. We have received that in the past, and that was very helpful because then we got to see what the oldest buses are.
Sure.
And that, yeah. And when I say this isn't, I'm not, when I say it's not sustainable, I'm not talking about just the buses right now. I'm talking about the entire budget, looking at the 91 million, and it was 88 last year and 86 the year before. So it's tough times.
Okay, I understand. Were there other questions there, Jim?
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, but each time we do a bus proposition like this, it's a separate line item to go in front of the voters?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So if this was a separate line item last year and we did not buy the amount of buses that we planned on buying, is there money there to spend on the next buses?
No, because you pulled it completely out of the budget, if I remember correctly, and used monies in other areas. Am I correct, Nancy? I'm pretty sure that was the case.
That's correct. So when the proposition goes to the voters, is only for the number of buses that we're going to purchase. So we had originally, we wanted to buy, I think it was 6 or 8 buses. That was reduced to 2. So the 2 buses that went to the voters, that's all we purchased, and no other money was included in the budget for additional buses.
Okay, so there was only, in the budget that was voted on, there was only the 2 buses?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Matt. So again, in terms of next steps, we're going to be waiting for the final state and federal revenue projections. We anticipate that they'll come in, and our hope is that we'll get additional state aid. We do believe that there'll be some additional funds coming in for stimulus with respect to COVID-19 relief. And so we're keeping our fingers crossed and believing for a really good amount to come in there. So we'll be back in touch at our next meeting to share that information with the board. The legal notice needs to be in the paper on for the public hearing April 5th. The last day for the board to adopt the budget is April 25th. And then the school board candidate petitions are due by 5 o'clock on April 28th. Go ahead, Matt. The public hearing for the budget would need to be done by May 4th, and the last possible day for voter registration is also on that date. The budget will be available and has to be available by law by May 4th. Absentee ballot applications must be received by 4 o'clock on May 11th, and then the budget newsletter is also mailed out on May the 12th. Okay, all right, and those dates are all aligned with the state required dates for each of those items. Go ahead, Matt. Absentee ballots must also be received by 5 o'clock on May 18th by the district clerk. So anyone who's going to do absentee ballot needs to have it in again by 5 o'clock to the clerk. And then the board vote would be on May 18th. Okay, Matt? Okay, we are currently planning for in-person voting. That's what we've heard from across the state. So that's what we're planning for at the following sites. So the Scriba Fire Station, Scriba Town, and Town of Volney. And that's, again, only for Oswego City School District residents. St. Paul's Church for Wards 2, 4, and 6. The Elam Grace Church, Wards 1, 3, 5, and 7. And then the Oswego Town Hall will take voters for Oswego Town, Town of Minetto, and Sterling. And again, that's Oswego City School District residents only at those sites for voting. Okay, Matt? Okay, so again, budget preliminary. We'll be back and look for more feedback from the board at our next meeting. We'll certainly be back with those items that have been requested this evening from the board. So we'll certainly bring back information around the transportation, the bus fleet. We'll also bring back the information that was requested earlier. I believe it was from Tom. Was it Tom or was it Jim? I want to make sure. But we'll go back and review this video and make sure that we bring all of those items back to the board. And we'll also bring the percentage back again also to the board. I think we sent that out earlier, but we'll bring it back so the public can see it as well from year to year. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. And any questions that the board might have on the budget, certainly share. If you share with us, we'll have those ready also again prior to the next, for the next meeting. I'm sorry, Heather, did you have a question or something there? Just want to make sure. Okay. All right. Great. Okay. Thank you. All right.
It looks like she does, though.
I'm sorry?
Okay. Kathleen's hand is up.
I never lowered it from before. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. All right, we also had a question, just so people know. We had a question from a public member. Go ahead, Matt. Public member was asking, Matt, can you, thank you. What happens with leftover funds? If there's funds left over at the end of the year, where do those funds go? Well, they can go to one of three places, right? Some can be appropriated to the next year's budget if there's concerns about, if there's funds left over. Some can be used for funds, like board members can choose to put some into the fund reserves, or to fund reserves, or they can say, no, we want to put them all in appropriated for next year's budget. Or, funds can also be placed and used for fund balance, up to 4%, if I remember correctly, by law. So they can go to one of three places when money is left over. Okay, all right, go ahead, Matt. All right, I want to shift gears here. We had some questions about where are we at with data. So we've looked at the data beginning prior to the year kind of really getting rolling. Then we looked at it, there was a winter draw, and now we've had our next draw for the year in terms of STAR data. So we've had some intervention screening reports that we've received, and we want to share with you where we're at. Okay, Carrie Plass is going to come on and share that information with us tonight. Okay, Carrie.
Hello, thank you, Dr. Calvin. Next slide, please. What I'm showing you, remember, this is the STAR data. It is our benchmarking tool. We give the benchmark in the fall. So we did start in late September, giving our first benchmark. It's 3 to 4 week window. And then we just gave the second benchmark starting the end of January, around January 19th, 3 to 4 weeks also again. So this will be the results of our STAR data for ELA and math. So the first one you're looking at, that's our early literacy data. Early literacy, again, is given in grades K and 1. It is a 34-item test. Right now, it is being given remotely for all students. So students will be taking the test at home. And as you can see, the green is at or above. Blue is on watch, meaning that they need a little support, but not a lot of support. And then yellow would tag an intervention, and red tags an urgent intervention, meaning they should be being provided some extra tier 2 or outside services from outside of the classroom services or other interventions. Next slide. What I did with the data was I wanted to let you see what I showed you in the fall versus where we are now. So it gives you better of a comparison of a screenshot in time of how our students are doing. So again, you can see that this is still early literacy benchmark K1. You can see that our youngest students are growing with this benchmarking tool. We're going from a 58.4% to a 66.1%. Next slide. Now I'm going to show you, this is our intervention screening for reading, which encompasses grades 2 through 8. So our middle school is involved in this reading snapshot. And again, you can see the scores of how we did with at level, on watch, intervention, urgent,
I'm not sure why that no data came up. So again, I'll show you a side-by-side comparison. Next slide. To show you how we were doing in the fall versus how we are doing in the winter. You can see a 1% decrease in the green for our 2 through 8 reading assessment. And again, this assessment's given at home, even for our 8th graders, our 7th graders. It's a remote assessment. Next slide. Now I'm going to show you math, the same thing. You can see our the nice green, blue, yellow, and red for at, on, and urgent, intervention and urgent for the winter. And then the next slide is more telling. This is the one where, when you look at math, you have to remember math is really taught linearly with a set progression. This is a nationally normed test. And what we have done with our own set of standards is we have narrowed down to essential standards. So when it's a national test and all the students across the nation might be receiving different standards, or winter's a tough time to look at the standard alignment in mathematics because schools are at different places teaching the standards. And also we know that we did pare back some and remove some of our standards, trying to make sure that we were ready for state testing if it did come to pass at that. So the difference, we always see a dip in January, but then the true comparison is where we are in May with the whole progression of mathematics. Next. This is, I don't know if you remember, I talked about our reading assessment called DIBBLES that we're giving. They're 1-minute assessments. These are actually given to students that were in person, and if it was a remote student, it was given independently. So these assessments are given with one-on-one, so we're a little more assured of what that it's the student answering. You can see on the left-hand side, those are actually Oswego County. So all 9 component districts, results are shown on the left. You can see the fall benchmark, the green was 31, the winter was 40% across the county. On the right-hand side is Oswego's benchmarking. We started in the fall at 32% green and have increased to 52%. This is just one measure though, remember, it's of DIBBLES, it's a subset score, and it's only grade 3. Sorry. So sorry. It is only 1 grade level, and again, this is one subset skill of that, and this one is called oral reading fluency. And the whole county decided to track this one as a group to show what we are doing with our reading initiative. And I think that's all the slides I have.
So what's clear to me is that while we are making some progress in some areas, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in others, right? And in the middle of the pandemic, there's a lot of work to be done. So the district is certainly committed to doing that work and really supporting our kids wherever we possibly can. Tom, I think you had a question there. Yeah,
I just and how are we going to address that relative to the time we have left? Because from all intents and purposes, we have 3 months left unless we extend the school year or we extend or whatever we can do. So what action plan are we going to follow to address those areas?
Sure. So we're involved in a number of things. Interesting you bring this up, Tom, because I recently just met with all of our principals. Recently, we just worked with the elementary principals and talked with them. And not only are we bringing kids back for more in-person instruction, but we've upped the ante in terms of academic intervention supports with respect to reading support, math support. There's a walk the skills drill that kind of happens in each of our buildings. And the goal is to really address some of those skill deficit areas. With respect to summer supports, we're already talking now about what could we offer for summer, right? So we're looking at a program for our elementary students students who have special education needs, and also for our high school students to give extra support to those kids as we kind of move forward. So we know that with this pandemic across the entire country, the state, and in our city, that there is some learning that we kind of want to address, learning needs that need to be addressed, and we are certainly committed to doing so. Does that help, Tom? I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I just think we need to dig a little deeper, and I'm sure we will, and define what that's going to be as we move forward, and how much time we can extend, or what kind of supports we get specifically, and then communicate those really well within the community, and so that everybody knows within the school community, but within the community at large, and knowing that what we're going to do to address those needs.
We agree with you 100%, right? And so, as I said, we have already started to meet, and what we're doing is we're looking at our data, we're looking at state learning standards. Based on what the data shares with us and shows us with respect to students, that's the programming that we'll be putting into place as we move forward with the extended year kinds of supports for kiddos over the summertime, right? Based on what the data shows us, that will help to drive our decision making. And we will share that for sure, not only with the board, but also with the community out loud and very clearly, so people know what we're going to do and the things that we're already involved in. In fact, if you'd like, in our next board meeting, I can bring back some of that intervention, those items that we're already doing, and then projected items as we kind of move forward. I can certainly bring that back at the next meeting. Heather, did you have a question there? Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, I just obviously the numbers are alarming, regardless of the growth. It is alarming. But when you look at the comparisons of the elementary schools, I'm always kind of shocked at where Kingsford seems to be, so much different than the other ones. The other ones seem to trend very similarly, with Layton kind of being on one end of the spectrum and Kingsford on the other. And I'm just wondering if you cross-reference these with other data, demographic data, socioeconomic data, like that kind of a thing, so we can kind of see what's happening there, because I think that's concerning. And then also when you throw in the middle school, like, I know it's a snapshot, but I find it alarming when every time we go through these, it seems like the middle school, when they hit middle school, like there's over time in the elementary school, by the time they get to middle school, some kind of movement, and it kind of seems like it's the opposite effect. And again, I get it, it's snapshots. I totally understand that, and get that you can't extrapolate too much from these snapshots, but I don't know, even as a snapshot, it does seem like there's something there, and I don't know, I find it concerning.
Right. Well, certainly there are concerns when students move from one setting into another setting, right? You are correct. There are some long existing concerns there that we're certainly working through the data to try to understand what's the root cause of it. How is it? And we know that when you transfer sometimes from one setting to another setting, by research, sometimes there is that, there's that concern with transition, right? But we certainly don't want to see it to a great extent in the district. You are also correct when you talked about Kingsford. So I think when you look at some static data, right, we see Kingsford, Minetto kind of like are your 2 or higher performing schools in some of the district's data. And then you have some other which are similar to each other, and the question is why are those similarities there? What is the difference? There are a number of factors. Socioeconomic goes into certainly that piece as well. I believe we need to dive even deeper into the data to figure out what's the root cause of the differences in terms of performance from one portion of the district to a totally different side of the district. There are some concerns that certainly we need to not only understand, I think, better, but also dive into those as we kind of move forward over the next couple of years post the pandemic. Yeah. I'm in agreement with you, Heather. Linda, go ahead.
I have a question for Carrie. Carrie, the reading program with SUNY Oswego, where the teachers that are going for their master's in reading, there was a program for years and years out there that would come into districts and they would take on students. Have you delved into that at all to see if we can't get support for a summer program?
Oh, the summer clinic?
Yeah,
that Dr. Pam Michaels used to run.
right.
It placed at Monetto. Yeah, we are looking at actually, maybe not this summer, but maybe a summer out doing a homegrown clinic here. Very similar, utilizing since we have so many teachers that have been trained in the science of reading now at K3, utilizing our instructors, and not, because of the deep understanding they have of teaching reading for summer clinics, bringing in those students that K3 haven't mastered the skills required for a grade level. So we are
with the data, Carrie, with the data that we're looking at, why are we waiting a year?
I'm utilizing the funding from an outside source because I have to pay the teachers. But if we have funding,
well, no, but I'm saying that we're seeing the data, and we may have money coming to us. I'm just trying to throw out that this is the time to take our summer and jump on it and help these kids increase somewhat over the summer months. And even if we do it in-house, which is great, because I think we've done a lot with Reading First and all the other programs and training that we've had our teachers participate in, that if we reach out to SUNY Oswego and see if they're running the program this year, we couldn't collaborate with them and do something this summer. I don't think, I'm not sure where the money comes from and all that. That'd be for you to figure out.
So I think I think what's really critical, a couple of things, just to share. First of all, with respect to the data, just so we're all clear, there are concerns about the data across the board, right? So some of these tests are given kind of at home, and some of the kids we think really focus. Some, there's some concerns about the reliability of the data. So there's always that caveat included in this, in the middle of a pandemic. I think, but also second of all, if we certainly take this very serious, right? There's a lot of work to be done. But I want to remind us that we have a lot of things already working in the district. There are some things that we're already utilizing. So we have the Reading League that's working with the district quite a bit. We have reading coaches throughout the district in a number of our schools. We have reading specialists in a lot of our schools. We've got math specialists. We have a lot of people that are already in place. And I think what we need to do is, again, use the data to help drive decision making. Let's figure out, first of all, where our children are in the district, right? And we're doing that as we kind of move along, and then create the program that's going to work best, and wherever possible, utilize the numerous amount of supports that we already have in place to help us before we start to add other layers. I just think we've got a full-scale reading league that's pretty well involved in our district that we might need to kind of look at how we might best utilize that support. And a number of those people are from some of the colleges around us and already partnering with us from SUNY Oswego. So just sharing, before we kind of go there, I think first we kind of need to, again, work through the data, understand what our programmatic needs are for summer, and then look at the resources we have. And then if we need to add more from there. I hope that
I'm just pressuring you to think about not letting our summer go and to do what we can to extend the school year for the children that have missed so much this year with the pandemic. That's all I'm saying.
We're on the same page. There is no need to pressure. We're on the same page with what respect to what we could offer and so how we might best support our students. We are in agreement, Linda, for sure.
Okay.
All right. Were there other questions from the board? Okay, so I think when we come back at our next meeting, we'll talk more about academic supports for students over the summer. Does that help, board? We'll bring that back. Will that help everybody? Okay, all right. Okay, go ahead, Matt. All right, aside from that, I just wanted to share just a couple more items just to make sure that we're all set there. We did have some questions around intramurals that we've been, those supports at the middle school. We're moving forward with that program. We've already gone out. I believe we have got the staff to help with that. Principal has been already working on making sure that that is in place. With respect to the basketball clinics, those have been pretty much completed. There are a lot of kids who did join those and want to make sure that people know that that has occurred. The indoor track. So we had some questions about indoor track. Can we do anything for those kiddos? So we have not heard yet back from the section as to whether or not and when they're going to start indoor track. That was kind of put on pause, if you will recall, thus far. We're going to try to do something for the indoor track kids. We'd like to do some strengthening and some additional clinic kind of work with those kids. And we're going to do that early April, just to support those kids. And some of the children we know are going to go from indoor track to outdoor track. So they'll have that opportunity to do that. But prior to going to the outdoor track, we'll have some extra conditioning in place for those kiddos as well. And then the last thing I just wanted to make sure that I was sharing was we've had a lot of questions from community members about junior and senior class activities and events. Both of those classes are working together to on a number of opportunities for kids. A lot of the traditional kinds of things that they've done in the past, we're going to try to do it, but do it in this socially distanced mitigating time frame. So we're talking about everything from senior trip to senior breakfast or lunches, to the prom, you name it, all of those events. We are working diligently with each of the class officers and folks on right now. I know Zeta's on. She's one of those officers at, I believe, the senior class. So I know that they're definitely working through a number of those items. So I just wanted to share, yes, we are working on junior and senior class items to make sure that things are done. I see Zeta has her hand raised.
Just a point of clarification. See, like colloquially, senior trip would be the trip to Florida that some people take. So
Well,
yeah, just pointing that out.
Go ahead, Zeta. Yes. So that trip to Florida, we're not going to do right now, right? But we'll be talking about a trip up to the Rochester area, if I remember correctly. I think they want to do some things up at Seabreeze. Thank you, Zeta, for the clarification. I want to let people know we're not going to Florida at this time. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to share that. Great feedback tonight, board. Thank you very much. I think that is all that I have. Go ahead, Matt. Any questions at all from the board about anything else? Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not a question, more of a statement. I know we're doing this and we're moving all ahead, and this is great, and I'm so glad we're doing it. But at the same time, and I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but just be mindful of what's happening globally relative to the pandemic and with the different strains and stuff, and to impress on everybody, still keep doing the social distancing, still keep wearing your masks. If this is going to be successful, we've got to stay safe and do all those mitigation tools that we have in our belt to keep it going. So I would just impress that upon everybody, because I want it to grow, but I've seen what's happening in Europe right now, and they're going back into shutdown, and we don't want to go there. So that's all. But thank you.
Heather, did you have another question or comment?
Yeah, I should have asked this when you had the screen up, but as far as the OMS intramurals, have we gotten far enough along the planning process to know, is there transportation? Is it going to be after school?
Sure.
If you could just give people an idea of what it will look like.
Will be after school. Anyone who needs transportation, we will provide transportation for them, right? We're definitely working on that to make sure that all children who want to participate will be able to participate. Also, as we start to bring back, other additional extracurriculars, whether it's drama club or whatever it is, anybody who needs transportation, our goal is to make sure that they can be transported, excuse me. I can't even speak. All children will have an opportunity and access to the opportunities we offer. So we'll be providing transportation for them. Okay. All right. Well, board, I'm all set. Tom, did you have another question? I see your hand up there. No? Okay, just need to hear. Okay. All right. Thank you, board.
Next on the agenda is Board of Education. First item, A, instructional calendar 2021-2022, that the Board of Education approve the instructional calendar of 2021-22, Oswego City School District as attached. Could I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, if the board does not mind, I'm going to read resolutions B through H and with a roll call after. B is inspectors and alternate inspectors for the May 18, 2021 Oswego City School District budget vote and election. That this Board of Education does hereby appoint the following qualified voters or qualified persons residing within the school district at the addresses stated after the names to serve as inspectors of election at the said annual school district election on Tuesday, May 18, 2021 at the rate of $200 per inspector plus an additional $25 per chairperson. Also resolved that in the necessity of further need of poll inspectors that the district will utilize inspectors who have served the district in the past and from the list currently used by the county Board of Elections to serve as alternate inspectors of election in the event of a vacancy occurring in the position of inspector of elections by reason of delineation, disqualification, death, or any other cause. C, that the Board of Education approve the annual school election, which will be conducted in the Oswego City School District between the hours of 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. on Tuesday, May 18, 2021, for the purpose of voting on the 2021-22 Oswego City School District budget, any accompanying propositions, and the electing two persons to the office of member of the Board of Education for a term of 3 years commencing July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2024. The terms commence upon following the oath of office. Voting will be conducted at the regular Oswego City School District voting sites, including District 1, Scriba Fire Station, District 2, St. Paul's Church, District 3, Elam Grace Church, District Number 4, Oswego Town Hall. D, that the Board of Education does here designate Tuesday, April 13th, 2021 and Wednesday, April 14th, 2021 between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. as the dates of which the Board of Registration of said school district will meet at 183 East Seneca Street, Oswego, New York, in said school district for the purpose of preparing a register for each school district for the annual city school district election to be held on May 18, 2021. The final day to register to vote and the Oswego City School District budget vote in the Board of Education election is Tuesday, May 4th, 2021. Registration is conducted at the Oswego County Board of Elections at 183 East Seneca Street in Oswego, New York, 13126. E, that the Board of Education appoint Matt Fleming, Cheyenne Kurtz, Karen Canale, and Kathy Miano residing in the Oswego City School District, Oswego, New York, as Board of Registration of the Oswego City School District for the term commencing March 17, 2021 to June 25th, 2021. F, seek a resolution of the Oswego City School District of City of Oswego, New York, determining the purchase of the transportation vehicles is a Type 2 action under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act and is not subject to further review. V, that the Board of Education approve the bond resolution authorizing the purchase of transportation vehicles by the City School District of the City of Oswego, New York at a maximum estimated cost of $1,125,000 and authorizing the issuance of $1,125,000 serial bonds to pay the cost thereof. H, that the Board of Education approve the resolution approving the proposition for the purchase of transportation vehicles for the submission to district voters at the May 18, 2021 school district annual meeting. Could I have a motion?
Move it.
Yeah. Linda?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Tom? Any discussion? At this time, if I could do a roll call vote. Kathleen Allen?
Yes.
Tom Chapa?
Yes.
Heather Del Conte?
Yes.
Pamela Dowd?
Yes.
Lisa Glidden?
Yes.
James McKenzie?
Yes.
Linda Serena?
Yes.
Resolutions B through 8 have been approved. Next is the consent agenda. Minutes of the regular board meeting of March 2nd, 2021. B, Oswego High School Extra Classroom Activity Fund Report, February 2021. C, Special Education Board Report, March 16th, 2021. D, Oswego Middle School Extra Classroom Activity Fund Report, February 2021. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll move it.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we will move to personnel with Dr. Sweeney.
Good evening. We have our first batch of spring retirements, so I'm going to read a general resolution and then I'll go through each one and recognize the individual with their title and years of service. Upon the presentation and recommendation of Dr. Calvin, we ask that the Board of Education accept the following retirements. Whereas the following individuals were employed continuously by the Oswego City School District, and whereas they admirably served the students and staff of the Oswego City School District with their full commitment to their responsibilities, and worked in partnership with their fellow employees and with their full service and dedication to the best interests of all students of our school district, now therefore be it resolved that the Oswego City School District hereby recognizes that their service was an asset to the students and staff of our school district, and we express gratitude and sincere appreciation for their years of service. Heidi Conlin Sheffield, an English teacher at the Oswego High School, and Heidi has been with us since February 5th, 2007, and will retire effective July 1st, 2021. Deborah Natoli, both a teacher aide and a teaching assistant for the Oswego City School District at Fitchie Park School since October 4th, 2006, and will retire effective July 1st, 2021. Pamela Krantz, who has been with us since May 5th, 1986, and is retiring as a senior typist from the Oswego Middle School effective May 31st, 2021. Linda Mott, who has been with us since November 5th, 1997, as a school bus attendant and is retiring effective June 24th, 2021. And Patricia Thompson, who has been with us since March 4th, 2009, as a school bus attendant and is retiring effective March 31st, 2021.
If I could have a motion for resolutions A through E.
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to say thank you to all of those people. And Heidi, I like the way that you changed up the wording after listening to that for so many years. It's a nice update. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
The next group of professional staff recommendations, F through M. F, Deb Kasmer, Interim Administrator at Oswego High School, 3-3 through 326. G, a professional staff recommendation for tenure, Ashley Jenkins, Special Education, Riley School. H, a professional staff recommendation, resignation from Deb Kasmer for a modified girls assistant lacrosse coach for this spring season. I, a leave of absence for Penny Morley, Dean of Students at the high school, for the year presented. J, modified sports coach appointments, Captain Clancy, Eric McCroby, and Thomas Grover for girls modified volleyball head coach and co-head coaches. K and L is where you see, if you remember last summer, we had previously approved a batch of folks for various extra comps. These were the intramural supervisors for the middle school, as well as a few substitutes. We did rescind them because at that point we were not moving ahead with various extra compensatory positions. So now we're moving back forward because we're fortunate that we're able to run some of our extra compensatory activities for students. And M, a volunteer recommendation for modified football volunteer coach Alex Guet.
For items F through M, could I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I just have a question. Oh, go ahead, Pam.
I was just curious. I see that the boys and girls varsity head coaches are also co-coaching the modified girls. This is for volleyball. How fortunate for the modified teams to get that experience. But could you just explain, not so much for me, but for the public, why that happened? Please. Thank you.
Normally, the modified seasons do not overlap with the main varsity and JV seasons. We have had Eric and another person as our volleyball coaches for modified for the last couple of years, run beautifully. However, this year with the overlap, we had Rhonda Bullard, my assistant Megan Wilson, and I had searched assiduously through a variety of venues, both through the section, through the local county, online, and we were unfortunate in our search for a separate coach. Rhonda and I worked together with Eric and Tom to put together a co-coaching type of model so that they will have no conflict with their varsity responsibilities, but between the two of them, they will be able to supervise all of the various practices and matches that the modified girls will have. So great question, Pam. Thanks for asking.
No, thank you. And thank you to the team that tried to find the coaches, but then we're able to work it out so that still all of those players are still able to be able to participate, and the coaches, like I said, how fortunate.
I think they'll have a great experience.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Heather, did you have a question?
Well, she actually had my same question. I was kind of wondering why there were 3 modified volleyball coaches for the girls team. But just for an explanation, then, how did you determine the stipend?
We have a formula that's contractual. Eric was the returning coach. So then we divided that by the 2 for each, the 50%.
Okay. All in favor?
That helps. Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Okay. And then N through Q, we have our support staff recommendations. N is a termination, Alicia Phillips, food service helper, part-time at Minetto. O is a leave of absence for Jessica Thomas, school bus attendant through the end of the school year. P is a probationary appointment for Rand Morehouse, food service helper at the middle school. And then Q is our batch of sub and temp employees.
Motion?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next will be finance with Nancy Squires.
A is a contract with Integrative Counseling Services in the amount of $7,200 to be paid from our federal 611 grant. And this is for administrative services for supervision of student clinicians that are going for their certification. B is a contract, a 3-year contract with OCM BOE for our wide area network services, not to exceed $61,507 over the life of the agreement. And C is our public employee health emergency plan. And the governor had signed into law of 2020 requiring public employers to adopt a continuation of operations plan in the event that the governor declares another public health emergency involving communicable diseases. And this is our district continuation plan.
Motion, please.
Move it.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I just have a question about A. So we have folks coming in to do play therapy, correct? And so we're paying for the supervision of those people. And my second question attached to that is, with COVID, we're still pursuing all of the services and we can have the extra people in without any problem?
No. So, and Carrie, you can certainly make sure that I'm correct. So first of all, the service is done virtually. It is the play therapy that's done. We've done it for the past couple of years. So we have some play therapists here in the district, but we have quite a few students that do need some extra support and help. So it's a special education service, and they would be coming in during the daytime to work with, I believe, 6 to 8 children, if I remember correctly. I think, did I get all your questions? The COVID, it's done virtually. And
the supervision is done virtually, is what you're saying. So
yes.
Not having to accommodate another person in the room, I guess, yes. Is what I'm asking. Okay.
That is correct. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed. Next is the student representative discussion with Zeta Olson.
I have nothing to bring tonight.
Okay. Then we'll move to the items from the board. Would any board members have any items tonight?
I would like to thank everyone that took us through the tour of Layton School, the high school, and the fields. I was so impressed, but the one thing that just warmed my heart was to see so many football out on the field. I think there were 32 or 33 of them. I got so excited to see them all out there running and doing their exercises, and just makes me feel good.
Any other board members have any items? Pam?
I just my normal thank you to the team and every team out there, because there's, probably 49 or 50 of them. I think Mathis is on every single one. But yeah, faculty, staff, teachers, administration, everybody, top to bottom, we all appreciate everything you do every day for the students in this district. Thank you.
Any other items? Heather?
I actually have 2 quick ones. One is I wanted to just update the board that I did have some conversations with folks in the education department at SUNY Oswego who would like to help us moderate a conversation about the equity issues and kind of like I brought up last time. And so we're still having those conversations, and they're in the process of kind of putting together something that would be the most useful for us. And hopefully I will have some specifics and dates by the end of this week or early in next week to see if it's something you all want to go ahead with. So that was an update there. And then I also wanted to just more to the public, I want to thank Mathis or Dr. Calvin, because he spends a lot of personal time with parents and with individuals, and I really appreciate that. I think I speak for everyone in that, but I just wanted to, we addressed this earlier in the year, and I just want to remind folks that there really is a hierarchy to not jump right to the superintendent, to make sure you first have gone to your teacher, to your principal, to the administrators, and then to Dr. Calvin as a last resort, just because he is spending an awful lot of time on the phone with individual parents. And we as a board obviously are always available for the public. We are your representatives, but we will again be referencing you back to that same hierarchy if it has something to do with maybe an experience with a teacher, an experience with a principal. There's a level, there's just a process. And then hopefully it doesn't have to get to Dr. Calvin, but if it does, we are so appreciative of his responsiveness to those needs.
Any other items tonight? Next will be executive session for the Board of Education to move to executive session for the purpose of matters which will imperil the public safety if disclose, collective negotiations, employment history of a particular person, and proposed impending current litigation. If I could...
There is no litigation. There's no
litigation. Okay. If I could have a motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You may move to executive session.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.